Jumbo, Habarigani, 10 minutes late. Sorry about that. But we're here. I am the magnificent MongoSlade. This is our Saturday live stream, our weekly non-wrestling live stream. This week, of course, has been dominated by your boy Sean Puff Daddy P. Diddy, aka Diddy Love Combs, and his Epstein-like blackmail scheme. We're going to go through the entire indictment, all 14 pages of this thing. Probably going to end up reading some of it, but it's going to be a tremendous deal. We're going to have fun with this, even though it's very serious. WG Phil, how you doing? There was other people here. They disappeared, I guess. Please tweet this out. Get other people to follow. I'm gonna start having to say that now. I need to turn you guys into soldiers again. I used to do that earlier. I used to tell people, hey, share the videos, use the hashtag 3count commentaries. Then I stopped. No, we gotta keep it, but you gotta keep going again. It's been growing steadily growing on the channel. Not looking too bad. 6,100, not too bad. I know that part of the reason why the channel has not grown is because I keep mixing content, which people keep telling me actually slows the growth of your channel. That if I was strictly a wrestling channel, it would probably go a lot faster. But I refuse to be one-dimensional. So I'm going to be multi-dimensional. While wrestling may be the primary thing we talk about on this channel, we're also going to talk about pop culture and politics and stuff like that too. Because most of the time when people try to open up a second channel to do all that kind of stuff, it doesn't quite work out anyway. So we're going to stick with this. Anyway, I hope everybody is doing well. If you're at work or something like that, stay safe. Hopefully this can keep you awake a little bit. If you're not doing anything, you're playing video games or whatever, I'm very glad that you're listening. We're going to go through this indictment in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about all the things they're accusing Diddy of. Of course, I have a bunch of questions. But from my understanding, what I haven't read the entire document. I'm not going to hold you up. I haven't read all of this yet. But from what it sounds like, from listening to like Nate the lawyer and all those kinds of people, it sounds like what they did is they basically compiled all of the lawsuits together and basically says, well, he's guilty of all of these things, and they think they can prove it, or at least they believe that they have witnesses that will discuss all the things that that is discussed in those indictments or those lawsuits, which seems, I don't know, I don't like that idea, because if your lawsuits turn into criminal cases, which is the same thing what happened with Bill Cosby, where you fire off a bunch of lawsuits and then the feds just pick it up and decide whatever evidence was used in a lawsuit is now all of a sudden evidence on a criminal case. I think that probably these lawsuits probably need to be sealed, because as a Fifth Amendment, you do have the right to, again, self-incrimination. Now, Diddy, to his credit, he basically paid off a bunch of people. He got busted on video beating up Cassie, so nobody's going to believe him when he says he's not guilty of all of this stuff. A lot of people believe that he's guilty. I am one of them. So this is going to be interesting. BEP says, you're the #1 non-Funko Pop, non-British twink wrestle commentator around these parts. I thank you very much, sir. Or madam, however that works. So I appreciate everybody for spending their Saturdays here. So let's get into this thing. Wait, Mark Forrester has a comment, then we're going to go into it. He says, the fact that he got away with this for about 2 decades and thought he was untouchable shows how much money and his ego drove his mindset to do whatever he wanted and took advantage of people. I think it's actually simpler than that. I think he's just a damn fed. And that's really all it boils down to. He got away with it because he was a fed. I'm thinking we're looking at the Black Epstein here. That's what I'm thinking we're looking at. But that's just me. We're going to talk about this right now. So here's the overview. For decades, Sean Combs, the defendant, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Says Sean Combs, the defendant, operated his business headquartered in various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global. Corporate entities in the Combs business, that would be Combs Enterprises, Combs Global, and Bad Boy. Included among other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television and media company. So they're basically saying that everything that he was involved in, for the most part, is likely going to be involved also in these RICO case. So this ought to be very interesting. It says, at all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse towards women and other individuals. This abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. As part of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of sexual activity with male commercial sex workers. At times, Combs and others, acting at his discretion, made arrangements for women and commercial sex workers to fly to Combs' location. Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. Okay, so this is very interesting because the sex trafficking is no doubt going to be in relation to him having sex workers fly in and fly out of a place. That's more than likely what the sex workers are going to be. It says on numerous occasions, from at least or about 2009 and continuing for years, Combs assaulted women by among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at them, and kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others and included one instance at a Los Angeles hotel in or around March 2016, which was captured on video and later publicly reported, where Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman as she was attempting to leave. Okay, so that's just the video. All right. So that's just the video. There's evidence that he actually physically abused Cassie Ventura. There's video evidence of that that is not in dispute. All right. So these other women, we don't know, but at least when it comes to Cassie, is undisputable. It says when a member of the hotel security staff intervened, Combs attempted to bribe the staff member to ensure silence. Combs' violence was not limited to these women. It extended to his employees, witnesses to his abuse, and others. I want to ask the question though. If I remember correctly, and you guys please let me know, this hotel where Diddy abused Cassie, this hotel no longer exists, right? The hotel is closed, if I remember correctly. How did the video get out if the hotel is closed? Who had the video? That's my question. Somebody had the video. If the hotel is closed, the hotel no longer exists. But yet the video just popped out of nowhere in 2024. If I remember correctly, the hotel closed in 2020, if I remember correctly. I should have looked that up when I was so late to get into this. But I remember seeing that the hotel no longer exists. Yeah, low key. Dun, dun, dun. And if they leaked it, that means they had it, right? And if they had it and didn't say anything or do anything until now, why would that be the case? Let's move on. The defendant used the Combs business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse and commercial sex. These employees, including security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high ranking supervisors and other close associates, acted as Combs intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs business. Okay, so they're saying that pretty much all of his employees were engaging in this kind of behavior as a part of their regular, the course of the business. So here's the Combs enterprises from at least in or around 2008 through on the report about the date of the filing of this indictment. Sean Combs, the defendant, and others, known and unknown, were members and associates of a criminal organization known as the Combs Enterprise. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Now, let's pause again. Prostitution, while technically not legal, it's almost always encouraged, isn't it? There's a lot of people who encourage what they call sex work, and they want to try to dignify sex work. But it seems like sex work is dignified, and it's a perfectly logical and serious business until it's time to arrest somebody. Then all of a sudden, well, it's sex trafficking. Again, it's not a defense of Diddy. I'm just asking the question, what's the difference between some of these other people who engage in prostitution and him taking his prostitutes on the road? I don't know. So, Low Key says apparently they've been investigating him for a while now. They wanted reason to go after him. Well, that much is true. I mean, that's obvious, actually. The question I have is how much information do they have? How long did they have it? Because it seemed like they had a lot of information on Diddy and they got it longer than people know. So it says the Combs Enterprise, including its leadership, its members, and its associates, constituted an enterprise as defined by the law. The Combs Enterprise consisted of Combs, the defendant, entities within the Combs business, including but not limited to Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprise, and Combs Global, individuals employed by and associated with the Combs business, and others known and unknown. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members functioned as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objectives of the Combs Enterprise. The Combs Enterprise was engaged in and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. Okay. At all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs was the leader of Combs Enterprise. Sean Combs and others known or unknown participated in unlawful and other activities related to the conduct of Combs Enterprises affairs. These individuals included certain Combs business employees, such as members of Combs security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors, as well as other associates of Combs. It says the purposes of Combs Enterprise is operating a global business in the media, entertainment, and lifestyle industries, including, among other things, record labels and recording studio. We already read that. Preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power, reputation, and brand of Sean Combs, a musician, entrepreneur, and figure in the entertainment industry. Okay, so they're basically setting it up here that these businesses, they existed to promote Diddy, to enhance his power and reputation, and therefore anything that he does, the companies are there to protect his reputation. So they will obviously be involved. It says, C's enriching members and associates of the enterprise, including its leader, and in particular those who demonstrated loyalty to Combs and willingness to conceal his crimes, preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power of Combs, including the power of its leader, through violence, the use of firearms, threats of violence, coercion, and verbal, emotional, physical, sexual abuse. Fulfilling the personal desires of Combs, particularly those related to Combs' sexual gratification, including through the exploitation of women and the use of commercial sex work. You notice that the exploitation of women comes up a lot in this lawsuit, despite the fact that there are both men and women. And both men and women have sued Puff, but where they're harping quite a bit on the women, you know? Um, that's a very interesting thing. Enabling Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise to engage in unlawful acts of violence, including sexual violence, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, blah, 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 blah. Here it says narcotics distribution. Interesting. Interesting. Narcotics distribution. It says securing absolute loyalty from members of the Combs enterprise, including through acts of violence and threats. Protecting the Combs enterprise and its members and associates, including Combs, from detection and prosecution by law enforcement authorities through acts of intimidation, manipulation, bribery, threats of retaliation against witnesses. Okay, so we're only on page 5. I'm already tired of reading. So we finally got to the important bit here, the freak off. So Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the power and prestige of Combs' role at the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, among other things, freak-offs. Freak-offs were elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial sex workers across state lines and internationally. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple commercial sex workers. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to his victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in sex acts with commercial sex workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. So, these freak-offs were so extensive and they went on for so long that you needed fluids afterwards. Now, there are drugs that cause you to suffer from severe dehydration. I think one of those is ecstasy. I think ecstasy, or is MDMA and ecstasy the same thing? I think it is. But those things, they cause severe dehydration. And one of the threats, if you take ecstasy, is that you'll die of dehydration. So we're saying here that he's been giving these people ecstasy. And look, the Diddy parties are notorious. And anything involving a freak off, I kind of believe it. I'm not even going to lie. The Diddy parties are too damn, they're too well known. They're too famous. All right. People get too giddy. LeBron James, ain't no party like a Diddy party. Eh, eh. It says members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, blah, 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 and other Combs business employees, facilitated the freak-offs by, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. Cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try to mitigate room damage, arranging travel for victims, commercial sex workers, and Combs to and from the freak-offs, resupplying Combs with requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to Combs to pay the commercial sex workers, and scheduling the delivery of IV fluids. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residences in Miami, Los Angeles, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics, and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. There was not a dry ass in the building. This Negro is going to die. All right? This Negro is dead. He's a dead man. Uh, they found drugs in his house already. The freak-off supplies, it was in his house already. This is a dead man. This guy is finished. All right? Nobody believes that he's innocent anyway, but there was not a dry asshole in the entire building. This man is dead. Okay. 1,000 bottles of baby oil. 1,000 bottles of baby oil. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse that caused the victims to engage in the freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunity, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance. That would be the white finger, the white nail polish that everybody talks about. Him controlling their physical appearance. That became a really big thing about, all Diddy's women had to wear white nail polish. Yeah, that became that kind of floated out there in the universe, right? It says monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. During and separate from freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked through objects at, and dragged victims at times by their hair. But this is all that again. That's all we saw in the Cassie video. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihood, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. Victims believed they could not refuse Combs' demand without risking their financial or job security, or without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during freak-offs as collateral to ensure their continued obedience in the silence of victims. That's extortion. That's blackmail, sir. That would be the reason you would have a mass orgy. Now, they talk about this stuff happening in hotel rooms. There's a lot of this stuff happening at his various mansions. There was a video of Diddy having a basketball court in his mansion, and there being king-size beds on the basketball court. So this Negro was having sex everywhere in the house. The entire house was a sex palace. He had two king-size beds on the basketball court in his house. This dude is dead. He's finished. The drugs alone is more than enough to send him to jail. Okay? I don't get it. Like when you're in a position like Diddy, and this is gonna be the one thing I'm gonna defend him on, you can't say people ingested drugs on their own. Because a lot of people do drugs. They do cocaine, they do ecstasy, they smoke weed, they engage in that kind of stuff. A lot of people do it on their own. And sometimes if you're rich, you supply the drugs, you know? And he was rich, so sometimes he supplied the drugs. The debate going to be whether people wanted to take them or not. And then when you add the power dynamics, quote unquote, that doesn't even matter. Because now you could say, well, I wanted to take them. Well, did you want to take them? Or did you want to take them because you might be punished if you didn't take them? He gives a new definition to the term rim shot. That Negro had beds and God damn it. What a sick man. You're a sick man, Combs. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise include Combs security personnel at times carry firearms. On more than one occasion, Combs himself carried or brandished firearms to threaten and intimidate others, including victims of and witnesses to his abuse. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers, as well as a drum magazine. Why does he have 3 defaced AR-15s in his house? That just seems this seems egregious. That this guy would get caught with AR-15s and drugs in his house. Why would you keep AR-15s in your house? Why would you keep drugs in your house? Now, see how they going back and forth between the freak offs happening in the hotel, but he got all the guns and the drugs and shit in his house, right? So you got to know. I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist and say somebody planted that stuff. I'm not going to say that. But it seems very suspicious that he would do all the freak offs, which is all the illegal shit, in various hotels. But he would keep guns, which, especially in Los Angeles, is not going to be kosher. He's going to keep guns in his house. That doesn't seem to make sense. But then again, criminals they tend to be dumb. So maybe he had the guns in his Miami house. And I think maybe Florida's a little bit more lenient with weapons. Members and associates of Combs Enterprise control over victims by following his directions regarding financial payments to victims, advancing or suppressing the victim's career opportunities, and acquiring the controlled substances Combs used to keep the victims compliant. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise at times witness Combs' violence towards the victims, or the victims injuries caused by Combs without intervening. Instead, members and associates of the Combs Enterprise help conceal the violence by, among other things, assisting Combs in monitoring and preventing victims from leaving locations such as hotels or Combs' residence. These occasions, including instances in which a victim was required to remain in hiding, sometimes for several days at a time, to recover from injuries Combs inflicted without being publicly observed. This is also from the Cassidy lawsuit, right? So a lot of this stuff it's reading like Cassie's lawsuit was so legit and we believed it. So we're gonna just toss this in here without naming her because they talked about Cassie needing to go into hiding sometimes because she would get abused. And she would be the only one that you would that you would need. Well, I won't say the only one. There will be other celebrities, perhaps, that would probably need to go into hiding because they were abused or beat up. But she would be the most prominent one. It says when employees witnessed to his abuse or others threatened Combs' authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engaged in acts of threats, violence, yada yada yada. These acts of violence included kidnapping and arson. In addition to multiple occasions, Combs threw both objects and people, as well as hit, dragged, choked, and shoved others. Now, the arson is apparently where he set a car on fire. I think he set one of his girlfriends. She had a new boyfriend or something like that, and he set her car on fire. Was that Cassie also? Or was that somebody else? I might be confused. When Combs' authority or reputation was threatened by the possibility of negative publicity or legal or law enforcement action against him, including in or about late 2023 following public allegations of Combs' crimes, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise pressured victims and witnesses, including through attempted bribery, to stay silent and not report what they experienced or knew to law enforcement. On phone calls, Combs and others members and associates of the enterprise, among other things, provided these victims and witnesses with a false narrative of events in an effort to conceal Combs' crimes. Combs caused these calls to be recorded on at least 2 occasions. Ah, it was Kid Cudi's car, huh? So there it is. Ah, I knew it was somebody's car he set on fire. Mark Forster says either he's doing life or he's going to cop out at least and do a football jersey number. I'm thinking he's going to cop out and they're going to kill him before he snitch, because he knows something on people. Come on, this guy's been around since 1991 or something like that. He knows way too many people. And then I was going to save this part for later, but a bunch of his associates and people who knew him started resigning from record companies the moment this thing hit. They just started resigning. People just started walking away from their jobs. So they're expecting something more to this. So now they're going to talk about racketeering. Now, okay, it says from at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, Sean Combs and others known or unknown being personally employed by and associated with Combs Enterprise, engaged in, and the activities of which affected interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly combined, conspired, confederated, and agreed together and with each other to violate the racketeering laws of the United States. That is, to participate, conduct, directly or indirectly, in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs Enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. So racketeering, I looked this up. So basically, it's an illegal business for profit. Like prostitution or money laundering or running numbers. I think that was one of the examples I read. Drug dealing. A lot of that stuff is just racketeering, right? Okay. So now we all on the same page with racketeering. Multiple acts involving kidnapping, chargeable under the following state provisions. Kidnapping, I would imagine, being him not allowing Cassie to leave various places as she was trying to leave. Again, she was on video trying to leave, and he chased her down, beat her up, and dragged her back. That is a kidnapping on video. They're gonna think that this video is going to do a lot of work, because a lot of this this indictment is just the stuff Cassie said. So multiple acts involving arson, multiple acts involving bribery, multiple acts indictable under the United States Code. They got all the codes and laws. Multiple offenses involving the possession with intent to distribute or distribution of narcotics and controlled substances, including cocaine, oxycodone, alprazolam, 3 methamphetamines. I don't. Ooh, these names are ketamine. So he got drugs in the house. There's drugs in the house for sure. It says it was part of the conspiracy that Sean Combs agreed that a conspirator would commit at least 2 acts of racketeering in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise. Um, so they try to get some special sentencing going here. All right, so count 2, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Victim 1. So I guess they're going to go through all the victims. But a lot of this stuff is things that we already read. So it basically saying that he has victim 1. He edited, aided and abetted, recruited, enticed, harbored, transported a person. Transportation to engage in prostitution. It says from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2004. Sean Combs knowingly transported an individual in interstate and foreign commerce with the intent that the individual engage in prostitution, and attempted, aided, and abetted, willfully caused the same, to wit, Combs transported, aided, and abetted, and willfully caused the transportation of female victims and commercial sex workers. So let's break this down for a second, because I saw a lot of people. Noticeably, it was like Lil Boosie, right? Lil Boosie was like, all Diddy did was fly out some hoes, man. And it's like, he ain't do nothing that no other nigga ain't done. Like he just had that kind of attitude. And I'm not gonna lie to you, because it's honestly true. Some people take their hoes with them. Like, is sex trafficking to take your hoes with you? You got to get new hoes every time you leave? I don't know, man. That's crazy. But it's absolutely sex trafficking. It's sex trafficking because that's exactly what you're doing. You're trafficking sex. You're taking sex on the road. Um, so they want to take his properties, from what it looks like. As a result of committing the criminal offense alleged in count 1 of this indictment, Sean Combs shall forfeit to the United States all interests the defendant acquired or maintained in violation of Title 18, and all interests in, securities of, claims against, and or property or contractual rights of any kind affording a source of influence over the enterprise named, described therein, which the defendant established, operated, controlled, conducted, and participated. They're trying to take away all of his properties. That means his entire, all of his businesses and his homes and his property. Um, Interesting. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 2, the defendant shall forfeit to the United States any and all property, real and personal, involved in, used, or intended to be used to commit or facilitate the commission of said offense, and all property traceable to such property, any and all property, real and personal, constituting and derived from proceeds obtained directly or indirectly as a result of self-defense. So they want to seize all of his businesses, his properties, and his money to prevent him from using these things in future crimes, right? So if the government can say you used all of your businesses to facilitate racketeering and sex trafficking, forced labor, intimidation, etc., then the government gets to seize those businesses. if you were using bank accounts, do they get to seize the bank accounts? That's what it looks like. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 3, it says the defendant shall forfeit to the United States any and all property. Same thing before. So it says if any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of the defendant, it says cannot be located upon the exercise of due diligence, has been transferred or sold to or deposited with a third person, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of this court, has been substantially diminished in value, or has been commingled with other property that cannot be subdivided without difficulty. It is the intent of the United States to seek forfeiture of any other property of the defendant up to the value of the above forfeitable property. So if he sets his houses on fire to damage the property or diminish the value of the property, if he tries to sell the businesses or he tries to tank the businesses, then they're going to go after some other thing. So that is the entirety of the indictment. 14 pages. A lot of it built the backbone on lawsuits. Diddy is finished. Now, I am of the opinion, especially after reading a little bit about Jeffrey Epstein, I am of the opinion that Diddy was some kind of asset. Diddy has been around since the 1990s. Diddy was arrested in a shooting in New York City. And what was that? Was that 2000 or 2001? Where Sean Barrow ended up doing the prison sentence. Diddy was involved, allegedly, with the death of Tupac Shakur. He was around a long time, and now all of a sudden, everybody wants a piece of it. So this tells me that Diddy is being thrown on the barbecue for a very specific reason. And they would not be bringing this case if they didn't have witnesses. Okay, so Sean was late 2001. Okay, that makes sense. I knew it was around that time. And Diddy beat that case. And Diddy for 30 some odd years was a suspect in the death of Tupac Shakur. There was never any evidence, despite the fact that he has been linked to the Crip unit, that Orlando Anderson, the believed shooter of Tupac, he was a member, I believe it was the Southside Crips. Is that what they were called? The Southside Crips? And Diddy was an affiliate, allegedly. Diddy also used to do business with Big Meech and BMF, most notably helping to boost Young Jeezy, who BMF, he was not signed to their label, not officially. But Young Jeezy was a prospect for BMF. And one of the first times most people outside of Atlanta ever saw Young Jeezy, it was in a Diddy video. So, also Diddy's daddy. His father was a drug dealer who was killed. Melvin Earl Combs, and he was connected to Frank Lucas from the Google I'm looking at. So his father was murdered, and his father was apparently a snitch. So there's a lot. There is a lot floating around Diddy. A lot. I'm very interested in this. Diddy was 2 years old when his father was killed in 1972. The murder was never solved, and it says here that it was actually never even investigated. Hmm. Interesting. Now, when you connect dots, like I tend to connect dots, I looked at things, I think a couple of weeks ago, you guys were around, some of you guys were around, and I was talking about Tupac Shakur, right? Tupac Shakur, his mother, Afeni, was a member of the Black Panther Party, a member of the Black Panther 21, was arrested for attempting to bomb a department store. There was a lavish party thrown by New York dignitaries named Leonard Bernstein. Big deal in the entertainment business. Afeni Shakur, who didn't have any money, they managed to hustle up some money from these radical whites that were willing to donate. And there were so many of them, right? And Afeni got out of prison. They beat the case, the Panther 21. Tupac was then raised by a coke addict by the name of Mutulu Shakur, who was a bank robber and a murderer. Um, that's pretty extensive. His mom was on drugs too. And he was raised partially in Harlem. He was born in Harlem, raised partially in Baltimore before going over to Oakland. And it just so happens that Tupac Shakur becomes a big deal in the entertainment business. You think that she didn't make any connections while she was a Black Panther and all these rich white people were helping? And these people, it just it's just funny how these things work, right? Chesa Boudin. I don't know how maybe people know who Chesa Boudin is. His mother was Kathy Boudin. She was a member of the Weather Underground, the radical white youth who was blowing up buildings in the 1960s and 70s. Her mother, his mother, also joined the Black Liberation Army, the radicals that was going around murdering police officers. While his mother was in prison, Chesa Boudin was raised by other white rich radicals like Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, right? So they take care of their own. They take care of their own. So it would stand to reason that Diddy fell in with some people who are still unknown, who helped him at least initially get started in Bad Boy Records. Now we know that he worked as an intern and all that kind of stuff. I get it. He worked all through college. I'm pretty sure he really did some work. But the street connections when it comes to rap is very, very important. On at least two occasions, the government damn near seized an entire record company under the belief that it was funded by drug money. They did this with Murder Inc. And what was that, 2005? And Irv Gotti was looking at football numbers because of his relationship with Kenneth McGriff, aka Supreme McGriff. Now, it wasn't as severe, but there was this huge lawsuit when Michael Harris, aka Harry O, and his wife claimed that they used $1.5 million to invest in Death Row Records. Harry O was a drug dealer. What the hell did he get $1.5 million? So the idea that drug money, feds, etc., would be involved with this is not out of the ordinary. People using gangsters and kingpins and these guys being a front to launder their money is not a surprise. These guys using parties and other kinds of extortion is not a surprise. Again, the Epstein information is very helpful here because Epstein ended up as an associate of the Mossad, which is the Israeli intelligence agency, because his girlfriend's father was a member of Israeli intelligence. Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, her father, was a rich guy who owned a bunch of newspapers in Britain, and he owned some publishing companies in the United States. That's how you get, and that's how you get important people to come to your shindigs. You get them to come to your parties, and then you blackmail them. And then it came out that that was Epstein's job, to get information and control over important figures. And they actually did get some control over Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew in the UK. Two of them are famous ones. But is there, when you look at, again, the Epstein thing, and you see that everybody who's anybody has been to a Diddy party, and you seeing that Diddy is recording these things and using them as blackmail, why else would you record them? Except for to use them as blackmail. Another interesting bit most people are not paying attention to. 4 years ago, Diddy boosted a political action committee called Our Party, Our Black Party. That's what it was called. And it basically pushed for Joe Biden to be put into office. And a lot of the policies that they were supporting in Our Black Party was very boilerplate progressive socialism, such as guaranteed income for all, defunding the police, addressing, quote, racism in healthcare, decriminalizing poverty. Diddy was very openly a supporter of Barack Obama. So everybody is looking at, oh, this guy took a picture with Diddy. I don't care about any rappers that took pictures with Diddy. I would pay very close attention to other people that was involved with Diddy, involved in his business ventures. Because I think personally that Diddy was a Fed. I'll never be able to prove it. I'll never be able to prove it. He may have to die before we can prove it, and we can look into it. But I think when Kanye said that he was a Fed, he was on to something. That's just my thought process. Diddy has been involved with way too much stuff, way too many situations. Again, this is a guy, his bodyguard got murdered by BMF in Atlanta. And Diddy is now dancing in videos with a BMF affiliate and Young Jeezy. That doesn't make sense. That don't make sense. So my guess is that the government has some people that's willing to talk. And that's why they bring in this lawsuit. This indictment. They've got people willing to give them up. Or they're trying to pressure people into giving them up. And they will. Nobody wants to go to prison. Especially not for sex trafficking and racketeering and that shit. They don't want nothing to do with that. They're going to give Diddy up. But this is the real reason I say he's a dead man. New York is one of those states that is not a big fan of cash bail. All right? In a state that is trying their best to just catch and release and not hold people. I want to look this up to make sure though before I say it, but they yanked his bail. They yanked his bail in a state that just passed bail reform. It says it right here from the Brennan Center for Justice. In 2019, New York ended the use of money bail and jail for most cases involving misdemeanor and lower level felonies. Now, this, of course, is a Fed case, right? So that it wouldn't be the same. So, of course, they go on to lie and say that there's no evidence between ending bail reform and rising crime rates. That's a lie. But in a state that is not a fan of bail, they would not let Diddy bond out. Oh no, they want to keep him right where he is. Part of it is humiliation, but they also want to be able to keep tabs on him. They want to be able to pull the plug on him if they need to. So I'm thinking he's an asset. And they might not need him anymore. Which likely means that they've got others. There's no doubt in my mind that Diddy's a fit. I may never prove it. He might be an industry plant and all that stuff, but he is most certainly, as far as I'm concerned, a Fed. He's walked away from a lot of stuff. He's been involved with a lot of stuff. But this seems to be the end of it. He was very useful in getting black people to support Joe Biden. He was useful for that. But they don't need him anymore. Too many freak offs. Maybe he invited the wrong people to the freak offs. But here's the thing. Now the government got the tapes. Just like the government got all the stuff on Epstein, they got the tapes. So why do they need a middleman now to extort people? Why do they need a middleman now to control people? They don't. They'll just do it themselves. You think that the government ain't making copies of those tapes? This is me being a 100% conspiracy theorist. I know it. But I'm going to run with this one. I think that they got the freak off tapes, and that's it for a lot of people who are going to be on those tapes. I think Candace Owens asked a really interesting question. She says, "When was the last time Beyonce disagreed with the government?" That was kind of an interesting question because I wasn't. I was like, really? That's a. When was the last time Beyonce disagreed with the government on something? When was the last time a lot of these celebrities disagreed with the government on something? How unanimously all of a sudden all of Hollywood told you to get the shots. They did dances in the street about the shots. Everybody in Hollywood, everybody in the government all agreed at one time that people with penises can be women. You think people come into those agreements on their own? And then think about this. Again, I'm being a conspiracy theorist. The Sound of Freedom guy, right? What was his name? Ballard. Didn't they slapped him with like sex trafficking or something like that a little bit later, didn't they? After he talked about being a guy that was against sex trafficking, all that stuff, they was like, you know what? You did it. You did the sex trafficking. Because he was against, what those guys were doing. His movie was never supposed to be released. It was never supposed to be seen. It was certainly never supposed to be popular. And so they took him down. So in my mind, how useful are these tapes of Diddy's freak off parties? These are very useful tapes. You who have very influential people on these tapes doing some of everything. And I think that speaks for itself, isn't it? Big Armada says people in Hollywood are very good at convincing you that they are rebels when they're really part of the system. But here's the weird thing that really kind of blows my mind is that rebels are almost always a part of the system. I read about the rebels in the 70s. The vast majority of them, with the exception of some of the black ones, were middle class with really good connections. They had good connection with radical lawyers. They had parents that were in, high ranking positions in their communities. Either they were community leaders or they were big muckety mucks and companies. And this is why they got away with it so much. They refuse to admit that, but that's why Antifa became a thing. They used to arrest a bunch of people in Antifa, find out that it was the daughter of some city councilman or something like that. They just let them go. I think the daughter of the mayor of New York got caught in one of these Antifa raids, right? She had like a big ring in her nose. She was all weird looking and shit. It was a catch and release, like a fish. Oh, shit! I caught the wrong one. Throw it right back. Oops, my bad. But you're a radical, though. You're a revolutionary. That's why you look at it And so many of these people ended up getting pardons. And I'm talking like people who murdered folks. So going back to like the Weather Underground, Black Liberation Army, Symbionese Liberation Army, the Puerto Rican separatist groups, Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton and Obama granting clemency and commuting sentences for all these people. Why? Why would you commute the sentence of American-born terrorists? Why would you do that? Especially if you cared about terrorism, which everybody claims that they do, why would you commute the sentence of American-born terrorists? Well, one of them just happened to have the last name Rosenberg. So, but the other one was named Evans. So you can let Clinton off the hook for that, right? But Obama commuted the sentence of this guy named Oscar Lopez, who was a very dangerous American terrorist of Puerto Rican extraction, who of course blew up buildings and was involved in multiple bank robberies in which people were killed. Why would Obama commute his sentence? Well, when you look at who Obama grew up with, he grew up with Bill Ayers, the Weather Underground types. Those people are very well connected. Very well connected. They can get their friends out of jail. They get their friends out of prison. These groups are the system. And anybody who tries to capture them, that's why the FBI ends up looking really stupid. Trying to capture Weather Underground and all these other groups. They don't want them caught. And then when you read your histories and you look at things, and one of the things I came to, again, me being a conspiracy theorist, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think one of the reasons why everybody is taught as a child to hate Ronald Reagan is because he won the Cold War. He beat the Soviets. Soviet Russia collapsed. Soviet Russia was helping to fund a lot of the other a lot of the other communist countries around the world, like Cuba. And now all of a sudden it's gone. So then you start seeing all these Marxist professors talk about how Ronald Reagan was the worst president of all time. He was an idiot. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, what about Iran Contra? You think that he was the only president that was involved with drugs? Again, Obama just lost who knows how many guns in Mexico. Whoops, those guns just disappeared. Is he not the worst president? He just funded and gave weapons to the Mexican cartel and completely lost them. Didn't know where they went. Whoops, guns are gone. Millions of dollars worth of guns just vanished and disappeared. No, not buying it. Especially since, and then again, when I read that book, Days of Rage by Brian Burrow, and I did some extra reading. So I read about the Lincoln Detox Center, which Matulu Shakur used to work at when he got his doctorate in acupuncture. They used to put out these pamphlets talking about how the government were the real drug pushers. And they made a decent argument. You know, that a lot of the soldiers, especially coming back from Vietnam, were hooked on opium, or they were just giving them drugs, scripts, not knowing that these guys were going to get addicted to the script, or in some ways wanting them to get addicted to the scripts. I know I'm going down the rabbit hole, man. I'm just saying, people have connections that you don't see. And when they are involved with radical things, and it does not seem, and they make decisions that don't seem to make sense, it has to be a reason for that. Somebody is leveraging somebody else. People are helping each other behind the scenes, behind closed doors, being quiet. Diddy was in Hollywood over 30 years. You never heard about a freak off until these lawsuits started happening. Now, there was a lot of chitter chatter about Diddy's party because Diddy was always on television talking about his parties. Oh, he put his hands on Mike Tyson's thigh. Him reaching over to Fabulous. Why don't you ever come to my parties? All that stuff made it a talking point. But he was in the media for 30 years straight. Diddy was almost like Snoop Dogg, where you can catch him anywhere. And now all of a sudden he's a sex trafficker. And nobody knew it until they started filing lawsuits. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for one goddamn second. I don't believe it for 1 second. People knew. They just didn't care. Because Diddy was offering them something, which is likely leverage over other people. Because if you got those kinds of tapes and you can use them to extort people, you can pay or get paid, rather, to give somebody control over somebody else. LeBron James went to your freak off party, huh? How much for the tape? I might want to destroy him one day. I'm just using him as an example. You can't tell me all these people were involved with these freak off parties and you ain't never heard nothing until now. The only reason why that would be is because there were people who were keeping you in the dark about that. And of course, they started talking about, oh, his wife, girlfriend, Kim Porter, she got killed, or, she died of pneumonia. She's only 47. How many 47-year-olds die from pneumonia? I don't know too much about that. I don't know if she had like a heart condition or, one lung or something like that. So there's no way of knowing, but it was very suspicious. It was indeed suspicious. All of this is very suspicious to me. But I don't think he's going to live that long. I don't think he's going to live long enough to get any of the answers from these questions. I said on Twitter, and I'll say it again, I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the year. I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the year. If he gets out, he might not make it to the end of the week. But if he stays in jail, he might be in jail for a while. And then all of a sudden, lights out, and that includes the cameras, and he's going to be found in his bunk somewhere with his wrist slit or dangling from the top bunk. Oh, he suicided himself. Diddy didn't kill himself. He's a dead man, yo. And the government got the tapes. And that's like the FBI got files on everybody, right? People know it. It's very hard to get those files. If you've been on, television or in the media for whatever reason, the FBI probably got a file on you somewhere in that office. Because they're always investigating various people for whatever. So you know that there's a Diddy file in the FBI somewhere. When they had the Tupac files, They kept newspaper clippings. So they were following his whereabouts. They had newspaper clippings of places Tupac had gone, people that he had talked to. Now, it doesn't help that Tupac was, again, tied up in radical politics with his stepfather, being who he was. So that probably didn't help matters. And Tupac was, again, I think he was involved with the riots as well. In terms of just going down there and participating, I don't think like he was a leader or anything. But they kept tabs on Tupac. And they kept tabs on Diddy. There's probably FBI files on Diddy going back to 1994. There's not likely anything about that son of a bitch they don't already know. It is absolutely, you can absolutely die from pneumonia. It's not out of the ordinary, but most people are just kind of suspicious because they think that she was fairly healthy, but there's no telling what other kind of ailments she may have had that could help that. Diddy's life is in danger as long as his heart is still beating. Because if he does, I'll say this. If Diddy pleads guilty, he might survive. But if he tries to take this thing to trial, it's over. They're going to kill him. Because whatever witnesses they got knew about this for years already. This stuff ain't just started happening. Diddy's parties have been going on for a long time. A long time. These things are not new. They're setting them up for a suicide. That's obvious, isn't it? Worst comes to worst, he's going to suicide by shooting himself in the back of the head 3 times. There's probably 25 files on Diddy. That file is going to be 300 gigabytes. Just off the Tupac stuff, the Biggie stuff, and the shooting in New York. He dated Jennifer Lopez, who was a Hollywood starlet. You think they weren't paying attention? Oh, they was most certainly paying attention. He was actively involved in politics. You think they weren't paying attention? Oh, they absolutely were paying attention. How many videos can you dance in with drug dealers before people start paying attention? Come on, man. Smarten up. They're going to kill this fool. And he knows it. And I think for some people who do commit suicide, it's because they know it too. Your time is up. You had fun, then you went too far, you got too sloppy. That's why when I asked the question about where did the video come from of him beating up Cassie, where did that video come from? It seemingly appeared out of thin air. Outside of when it could be used for a criminal case. It can't be used in a criminal case now. Well, not against her directly. But all of a sudden, that video just happened to exist. What other videos do they have of Diddy that exist? You see how TMZ found the video of him getting arrested? Where did that video come from? They got tons of information on this guy. And if they got video cameras on him all the time, and they're taking newspaper clippings of him from every generation, they're likely controlling him. That's my one conspiracy theory, where I kind of believe that once you get to a certain level of fame and popularity, the government starts paying attention to you because you have a level of control. All this stuff that they talk about in this lawsuit, threats, intimidation, coercion, they do all of that shit. They threaten, they intimidate, they coerce. They don't have a problem with people getting threatened or intimidated or coerced. They have a problem with you doing it. WG Phil says apparently J Lo is panicking about being entangled in this. Well, pretty much anybody who takes a picture with Diddy is going to be somewhat entangled in it, especially people who are enthusiastically friends of his, like Meek Mill. You know, they definitely going to be under scrutiny. But all the people, I need to find a list of record executives that have quit since Diddy got indicted. I need to look that up because there was quite a few of them. There was a lot. There was a lot of people resigning. So, Billboard. This was from 3 days ago. Do 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 do. A guy by the name of this guy's from RCA Records. They don't have like there was somebody who had a list of them. Oh, Kevin Liles. He stepped down 4 days ago. Kevin Liles was an associate of Diddy's. Hmm. And Kevin Liles said one of his short-term goals was to help elect Kamala Harris. Oh, oh, really? Max Lusada of Warner, Julie Greenwald of Atlantic, Robert Klinkel of Warner Music. No, that was just a memo. I'm sorry. Um, After a decade, it's time to pass the torch. Just days after Diddy was indicted, Kevin Liles decided, you know what? I think I'm going to hang it up. I think I'm going to go away now. Yeah, I bet. Let's put in Kevin Liles Diddy. There's probably a picture of him right there as soon as I do it. Here's a all hip hop asked the question. What's the deal with Kevin Liles and Diddy? Hmm. Virgo Rebel Penguin says he is a fall guy for sure. However, he is a monster. Proclivities make you a target. The Kim Porter book has been released. I heard it was only 60 pages. Is that really a book? It's more like a pamphlet. This is also going to be a way for other powerful folks to get taken down. I agree. And I think, but here's the thing, it's not really, you don't really need to take them down. If you have weird sex tapes of them, you can control them. So that would my mindset would be. My mindset isn't even all these guys going to jail or prison. I'm more afraid of these people being controlled than them going to prison. I don't care about them going to prison. Who gives a shit? I care that they turn around and become propagandists. That's what I don't like. That they can actively cause damage to the American culture because they're compromised. But at the same time, these folks only trust compromised people. Mark Forster says, what's your overall consensus of him getting denied bail and just sitting in Brooklyn? And all these high-powered people stepping down. I think it's pretty obvious that anybody whose name might come up in this thing is going to walk away as quickly as possible. If your name might appear in one of these documents, you might as well walk away now. That's what's going on when it comes to the music business. People's names have started popping up in these lawsuits. The government didn't name anybody, but this is just a grand jury. Virgo Rebel Penguin says it's enough in those 60 pages to get folks in trouble. Well, the man's already in trouble. The man's down bad. Your man's down bad. Your man's bold. Your man is bold. From my understanding, this whole thing began, and I forget. I think it was a lawyer on TikTok that basically said that somebody tried to extort Diddy. He didn't go for it. So then they filed a lawsuit, making all these allegations public, and then that's what started all of this. Is that he started making mistakes of not, there was leverage on him, and it just instead of just saying, "I'm caught, I'm gonna give up the ghost," he decided to fight it, and ended up making it worse. He really screwed up. But now they don't need him. Cat was right about the big dick deviants. Did he call him big dick? I hope not. I thought he didn't know anything about that part. Even the head of Nike stepped down. Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? People who have phone conversations of if Diddy has your phone number in his cell phone, you might as well just quit. You might as well just give up right now. This is not an R. Kelly situation where R. Kelly was like, oh, he's uniquely a pervert. This is the freak offs are because these things involve everybody who has ever been to a Diddy party. Everybody. This includes Beyonce and Jay-Z and all these people. Diddy is going to die. That's what's going to happen here. He is going to be killed. They're not going to let him compromise some of the people that they already have control. If some weird shit comes out about him and Beyonce, it's going to destroy Beyonce, and they're like, no way. They'll kill you for that. Yeah, everybody can sit back and laugh at, Meek Mill. He doesn't have that kind of cultural value. But there's people who have some real cultural value who went to a Diddy party. And probably there's photos of them there or videos of them there or whatever. When that guy filed a lawsuit and Cuba Gooding Jr. was at Diddy's yacht or something like that, that should tell you right there something is up. Anybody could be involved. Anybody who went to a Diddy party could be involved. So this is not a R. Kelly thing where everybody treated R. Kelly like he was a unique evil. This is involving, again, 30 years of this guy and these parties. He ain't just started throwing parties. He been throwing parties. He been doing this shit. He been had people under control. He been probably a Fed the entire time. Yep. I looked it up again. Rodney Jones as Cuba Gooding Jr. to his lawsuit. Because there was a picture of Cuba Gooding Jr. in his home. $1,000 bottles of baby oil. That's problematic. I heard they had like a whole cache of dildos. Freak off supplies were plentiful. That's gross, bro. I think Mark Forster said he lost that Ciroc deal. Things went downhill. I mean, part of this is just Diddy's been doing this shit for so long. He probably felt like he was invincible, and he started making mistakes. Not paying off his extortionist is a mistake. You know, a lot of these guys, if we being honest, they end up in these situations because they don't pay these women. That's what happened with Vince. Vince McMahon didn't pay the woman, so the woman decided she's going to make public all of his sexual proclivities and all this stuff. And they always try to extort you behind the scenes first. And then if you don't bite, they go public. Knowing that you're the one that's going to take all the reputational damage. Bill Cosby. Michael Eric Dyson wrote a book about Bill Cosby long before Bill Cosby was arrested. That talked about Bill Cosby supposedly being involved with like a lot of women being drugged and taken advantage of, and how women tried to extort Bill Cosby. This is long before, what was that bum Aries Spears came out and started talking about it? Long before that. And he wrote that book to destroy Bill Cosby because Bill Cosby was sort of right wing. Again, goes to show that they have all kinds of information on you that they can hold over your head and use when they see fit. Michael Eric Dyson was trying to destroy Bill Cosby's credibility, not because Bill Cosby was wrong, but because he dared go against the orthodoxy. That's why they wanted to get rid of him. And it took a long time. Again, they started trying to extort Bill Cosby in the 80s. But it wasn't until the 2000s that they actually started working. Until a generation of kids who had no real connection to Bill Cosby and were more radically political and already kind of pissed off because Bill Cosby is he's an old fuddy-duddy, old conservative fuddy-duddy. Oh, Bill Cosby thinks you should be shot for stealing. Oh, I 100% believe now that he drugged and raped all these women. That's how it happened. They destroy your reputation first, and then they come for you. It took them a long time. That's what's called the long march. There's nothing that Bill Cosby got jammed up for that was not written about in the 90s. Just like the Diddy parties. People knew about the Diddy parties 10 years ago. Maybe we didn't know how bad they were. There was going to be copious amounts of lubricant and baby oil and AR-15s in the house. Maybe we didn't know that. But we knew he was doing crazy sex shit. There used to always be a bunch of jokes about Diddy being gay. That was not a surprise to anybody. R. Kelly is another one. Again, everybody knew R. Kelly was weird. He married an underage girl in the 90s. He went to a trial for supposedly pissing on another underage girl. But it took for there to be a generation of people who are detached from, bump and grind and, chocolate factory. You're 10, 15 years off a chocolate factory. Okay, now we can get you. That's what's going on with Diddy. He ain't been relevant in a really long time. So you're not going after somebody who has a lot of cultural cachet right now. Usually when black people get jammed up, you see a bunch of woke blackies show up talking about they just trying to bring them down. They don't want to see a black man succeed. But right now they're 3 for 3. You say a black man say anything, the wokest Negroes online will absolutely 100% agree that you did it, without question. They got it with R. Kelly. They got it with Bill Cosby. They got it with Diddy. 3 for 3. 3 for 3. How did that happen? You were propagandized first into thinking that they were guilty. So when you start hearing the evidence, you start saying, well, shit, yeah, they're guilty. I heard this story back in X, Y, and Z, like I just said. But I do think at least 2 of those 3 was absolutely guilty. I'm not so sure about Bill Cosby, but I'm 100% sure R. Kelly did that shit, and I'm 100% sure that Diddy did this shit. 3 for 3. Big Armada says, I'm wondering if it's possible to even work on Hollywood without getting entangled in things like this. Only name that comes to mind seems to be clean is Denzel Washington. Yeah, because Denzel had that saying that you need to get out of Dodge. Get the hell out of there, right? You go, show your face, and then leave. Mike Don says now his son is claiming gangs now. Interesting. BE says, who's the new faces of the culture now that they're cleaning house? It's probably going to be some woman. They got Russell Simmons' ass up out of here too. Russell Simmons is hiding out in a foreign country, lighting incense and doing yoga, which is what everybody told Diddy to do. Like, as soon as everybody told Diddy to run, but he didn't run. Likely he couldn't run. Likely. But Russell Simmons had to got his ass up out there. So they probably gonna put some woman in the position. Don't be surprised if all of a sudden they start talking about the female face of the rap industry or all that kind of shit. The new female CEO of some record label. Because largely what they've been doing is replacing these men with women. Because women, they're easier to control in so much as they'll just go along with the program. They're a little bit more agreeable. You might not have to do all of this extensive research and entrapment and all that kind of shit. You might be able to get a true believer. 88 Denzel been quoted to say, "Leave 30 minutes before the devil arrives." Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. WG Phil says, "Damn, imagine all the celebs who endorse Harris get caught up in this." Yeah, there's so many celebrities that were the voices of like Joe Biden and shit that got caught that's involved in this. That's why I looked up because I remember Diddy being a part of some kind of political party back in 2020 to get Joe Biden elected. And I'm telling you, she used to date Montel Williams, right? Didn't Kamala Harris used to date Montel Williams? Montel Williams was a big star in the '90s, wasn't he? You think he went to a Diddy party or two? Hmm. 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 He gave Brandon T. Jackson that advice. Hence, that's how his name stays clear. Yeah, it's like he told Will Smith not to do gay scenes in movies, and he did it anyway. Watch the movie Get Him to the Greek. Diddy basically plays himself in that movie. Oh my god. Oh, that's sick. He says, and Russell Simmons, but the only difference, he's still walking in society, but he's nowhere near the Russell Simmons 30 years ago. Yeah, Russell Simmons, he lost a lot of power a long time ago, but he was still important. You know, he was culturally important because of all the things he done I was about to say Bad Boy, Def Jam. You know, it says right here in USA Today, Sean Diddy Combs' career at the intersection of music, politics, and business. Diddy has taken pictures with some of everybody. The first damn picture you see is him and Donald Trump, right? The first damn picture you see is him with Donald Trump. But he put together his little coalition to try to get Joe Biden elected. He put a little coalition together to try to get Obama elected. So you never can tell who's going to be on these registries at the Diddy party, who was in the photos and everything. But you know what? You know one thing that they didn't mention that was mentioned in the Ronald Jones lawsuit, that there was underage girls at the freak offs. That's not mentioned anywhere in the indictment. Like Ronald Jones, Lil Rod, he swears that there were underage girls at the freak offs. But the law ain't going after him for having supposedly underage girls at the freak offs. I'm just saying, it's all starting to make sense. Diddy is a liability. You got to get rid of him. When he would not pay off the extortion, he went down, down, down. It's all bad. Okay, so it says Montana Williams he was on TV in 1991. Um, he was an actor. Um, Let's see. What else was he involved with? Oh, he dated Kamala Harris in 2001. Okay. So that's 23 years ago. Would have been perfect, though, because Diddy was throwing parties in 2001, brother. Conservatives made a huge fool of themselves confusing Montel for Diddy. Shit like that makes the right lose the culture war. I don't know if anybody thought he was Diddy. Is that did that really happen? Diddy was having sex party battle royals. Them shits was marathon. He wanted to make sure nobody died, so he had like a medical team on staff. Like, did you have to fuck the doctors and stuff too? Like, I don't know, man. That's how you getting anything done with so much baby oil? Diddy can't go. Who else going to keep Johnson and Johnson in business? Or the government when they force you to take that shot. That's what he's too sloppy and slippery. This is disturbing, but Cat Williams and Orlando Brown were not lying in their interviews. People who are in Hollywood, especially those on the outskirts, they typically have good information. Orlando Brown is mentally fucked, so it's hit and miss with him. You got to take that with a grain of salt. But Cat Williams, yeah, I knew he wasn't talking no bullshit. I knew he wasn't talking no bullshit. He's a pervert, and everybody knew that. Everybody knows he's a pervert. Jaguar Wright is a little crazy too, but yeah, she's. Everybody seems to think that Jay-Z is next. My thing is Jay-Z keeps to himself for the most part. Everybody's talking about him and Foxy Brown, but Foxy Brown keeps denying it. But the thing is, if Jay-Z went to a Diddy party, which he more than likely did, especially since he knew Big when Big was alive, they likely went to Diddy parties. If it wasn't nothing but the album release party, he went to some kind of party with Diddy. He probably already wrapped up in this thing. But that's what I mean before is like there's so many actors, celebrities, ball players, politicians, etc., who have done business with this guy, showed up at these parties, and now they're quaking in their boots trying to figure out if they're on video and what did they do at the party. Maybe you were at the party 15 years ago and you barely even remember it because you were smashed. I don't even remember being at the Diddy party. My thing is now the Feds got the tape and they're going to be able to take down whomever they want. Or they're just going to put everybody out there and say, here's your marching orders. Here's what we want you to say. Here's what we want you to put on your Instagram. Here's all the ideas we want you to promote. And to me, that's a bigger deal than people going to jail for shit that they did. Cat spoke about this stuff on his Pimpin' years ago. Man, they said he killed his mistress. They've been trying to get Jazz for years. Hmm. It's about to be a September to remember with these situations. Well, it's already a September to remember. My thing is, I wonder is he gonna go down or he's gonna try to take somebody else down with him? That's my question. He probably can grab somebody's ankle and drag them down too, but it has to be somebody significant. And if I was in an Epstein like situation like Diddy, That's probably what I would do. I would probably say, look, I ain't going down alone. I'm not gonna wait till the trial either, because it might not be a trial. You might end up just going ahead and getting suicided in your cell. Just put through your lawyers. I'm willing to give up Jay-Z and Beyonce, and they doing freak off parties too, and blah 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 blah. Let me go, or at least let me live, or I'm gonna tell more. But at this point, man, they killed Epstein because presidents were involved and world leaders were involved. Diddy is more than likely going to be mostly the entertainment industry. They still may kill him because there might be some politicians involved and some people that they really need that are useful for the worldwide agenda. They're likely going to be some kind of politician, or especially since he's lived in New York for a long time, he probably has a lot of connections there. Maybe there's some mayors or some city councilmen or something like that that has been to Diddy's house, or he's come to their residences. And but like all these people now coming out saying, "Oh yeah, Diddy ruined my life," and the band, they're making hella jokes about Diddy getting arrested. You made them walk to get cheesesteak. They have them tapes to extort people. That's exactly what the reason the tapes exist. And now the government's got them, which is exactly the wrong people to have them. Now you can be extorted by the FBI. Now you can be used as an asset by the FBI because the FBI knows that you was going to the freak off parties and they got you in 4K getting humped on by some male prostitute. It's all bad. Going to prison is easy. Controlling them is masterful and more powerful. Yeah, that's the 48 laws of power. You don't need to kill them. Just put strings all over them. That's why I think a lot of those people in Hollywood, again, when they started coming out and they do all these commercials, all these celebrities come together to do a commercial for the vaccine. Get out of here. All right? It's bullshit. Get out of here. There's more to it than this. I'm not going to say everybody is being extorted, but some of them are. They have Obama at a freak off party. So that man is gone. Look, it's going to take a little bit more than a freak off party to take down Obama. They'll protect that. They'll throw the entire government in front of the bullet to take about to save Obama. So maybe he'll convert to Islam to try to make Palestine kosher again. I don't think there's anything he could do religiously that's going to save his life. He can't even become a Jew and save his life. P. Diddy about to be on his Frank Lucas, just like his daddy. His daddy was a snitch. He's going to be a snitch. If I was Diddy, I would actually probably be more scared if they let me go. Like if they gave him bail and he bailed out, I probably would be more scared then, because then that means they're still going to keep track of you, and they're probably going to clip you somewhere. You know, somewhere where it's inconvenient. Ricky Cornflakes, my dog, for real, for real. But I feel terrible for all of the people who are going to be jammed up in this. All the people who are just like, man, all I do is work here. I don't got nothing to do with the freak off parties. Imagine that you're like the regular guy who busts his ass to get a job at Bad Boy, you know? And now the feds are saying that you are complicit in sex trafficking. You're like, wait a second. The fuck you mean? I stack boxes that bad boy. I print logos. What am I? How am I involved with sex trafficking? You know, like I bring the paper to the office. How all I do is send emails. How am I a guy that's complicit in sex trafficking? You know, I feel bad for those people, but not for Diddy. And I don't feel bad for anybody that he's got on a video. I feel bad for the rest of us who don't know what's on those videos and don't know who's going to end up being controlled by the people who got are now in possession of the videos. They're probably gonna say something stupid like they destroyed the tapes, right? Oopsie. Like when they invaded, what was that, Waco? They claimed there was a bunch of guns and shit in there. And they're like, oops, we destroyed it all. Sorry. Yeah, right. If they tell you they destroyed the tapes or something like that, then that means they got them hidden somewhere. All right, y'all. Thanks everybody for stopping by. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys later.